The first violins that Amnon worked with connections to the Holocaust, he actually inherited. They were German instruments that his father had bought from members of the Palestine Orchestra, later the Israel Philharmonic. They had brought these German-made instruments with them to Palestine when they had immigrated there to found the orchestra. And after the war, when they learned the full extent of the atrocities the Germans had committed, they refused to play on their German instruments any longer. And so some of them destroyed their instruments. Others sold them for pittances to Amnon's father. One happened to be made by a 19th century German violin maker named Benedict Wagner. And the very connection with Richard Wagner disturbed its owner to the core. And he said, I don't care if they're not related. I don't want to play on a violin made by a man named Wagner. And he sold it for pennies to Amnon's father. And they just sat there in the workshop for decades. And Amnon, as he was distinguishing himself as a violin maker and violin repairman, he started to look at these instruments and say, these are really excellent instruments. And we never talk about the German instruments because of their connections to Nazi Germany. And so he started exploring the instruments. He had a German bowmaker friend who visited him, and he showed him, look how great these instruments are. And he even gave a lecture for them in Germany at a conference of German instrument makers and bowmakers. And his curiosity about these instruments made him start to think, what else? What other violins are out there with these connections to the Holocaust? And that's when he started pursuing the Violins of Hope project.